Good evening and welcome in to the first ever episode of This Week in High School Sports on KZLX FM. You can also listen online on kzlxfm.com under the TuneIn app, as well as on YouTube. As always, give us a follow on Twitter at x106_sports. You can also follow our new Twitter account that is dedicated solely to the coverage of high school sports at x106 High School 1. I'm your host, Trevor Maynard. Joining me is Kramer Sansone. And Kramer, this is something we've talked about all summer, trying to get this into fruition, and we're going to do it. First episode. You ready to go?
Yeah, definitely. I'm totally ready to go and stoked.
You've been studying all week, all summer on the high school area teams, making sure you know everything?
Yes, I actually have been. I made sure I know the teams that are surrounding the area where KZLX located at, which is the Northwest Missouri State campus.
Yep. Northwest Missouri, Southwest Iowa. There's a handful of Iowa schools we're going to give some attention to, mainly the 275 Conference in Northwest Missouri, the Grand River Conference, and the Midland Empire Conferences. We got a great show lined up for you here today. We're going to take a look at the 275 football scores from Friday night, as well as the Grand River Conference and the Midland Empire Conference. We're also going to hear from some coaches. We're going to talk to the head coach of Rockport, Mr. Ross Hastert, here later on. I know Kramer's in Rockport on Friday night for that game. Also, we're going to talk to the head coach of the defending 8-man state champion Worth County Tigers, that being Chris Healy. He was kind enough to join us, so we'll hear from him later on. And the head coach of the Maryville Spoofhounds. They're also a defending state champion. We're going to hear from head coach Matt Webb later on today. So the high school sports season is officially underway. Football season started last Friday night. Volleyball and also other fall sports. I know Missouri plays some fall softball. I'm from Iowa, so I'm not used to the whole fall softball dynamic. Those sports have got rolling here lately. Early in the week on Monday, Rockport volleyball, they fell in 2 sets to Bishop LeBlond. And then on Tuesday, Maryville volleyball, they defeated East Buchanan in 2 sets, 27-25, 25-21. Mound City dropped 2 sets to West Platte, 25-19, 25-10. And across the state line in Bedford, the Bulldogs defeated Essex in 2 sets, but dropped 2 sets to Riverside. Also in softball play, Maryville dropped a 4-2 decision to Lathrop on Tuesday as well. So some fall sports going on here in the area, and they'll keep rolling throughout all the fall with volleyball and softball. Has Missouri always played fall softball?
Yes, they also do golf. I
knew that
in the fall as well for girls. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I knew they played fall golf. How late does that season typically go? Like I said, I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from just across the state line.
It usually ends, I think, before November. It might dip in before Thanksgiving break. As long as there's no snow on the ground, I think they just play until whenever, I guess.
I was going to say, you don't want to be golfing in the snow. Definitely with a white golf ball, it might make it.
That's why there's neon balls.
Yeah, true. I mean, that could potentially happen. But definitely in November or December.
Yeah, softball, it's always been a thing here in Missouri to play in the fall. Yeah, play in the fall.
Learn something new every day. Look at some of the one thing I do know a lot about, because it travels pretty much any state. High school football, and high school football season started on Friday night.
That's correct. It was a great action. There's a lot of scoring, but we can expect that.
Yeah, and a handful of different games. We'll just start with some scores from the 275 conference on Friday night. To me, this was the best game, at least in the state of Missouri, maybe throughout a little bit of an area here. Southwest Livingston was able to defeat East Atchison 46-42. This is a wild back-and-forth game, several lead changes. I kept following it, and it seemed like every time I heard a score, someone else was taking the lead. I don't know how many lead changes there were for sure, but East Atchison looked like maybe they had it put away, and then South Livingston got on a little bit of run, and they were able to take home the win. But that one just seemed like it was a wild one Friday night.
Yeah, that was actually probably been a good one to actually attend to and actually watch all the scoring back and forth. I mean, everybody was on their feet the entire time. So,
yeah, good win for Southwest Livingston as they go to 1-0 on the season. Stewartsville defeated Northwest Nottoway 50-0. It sounds like Northwest Nottoway just had a little bit of trouble getting any offense going there, and Stewartsville able to end that game early. And then also Mound City, who many people think is probably the favorite to win the 275 conference this year, they pick up the win over Platte Valley by a score of 58-0. They jumped out to an early lead. I believe it was 38-0 at the end of the first quarter, if I remember reading that correctly. One game that really interests me was Worth County and South Holt, Nottoway Holt. Worth County picked up the 74-28 win. defending state champions, but they lost a lot of pieces. We'll hear more about them later with their head coach, Chris Ely. But South Holt Nottoway Holt actually scored first in that game. They hung with them for about half a quarter or so, and then Worth County's offense is able to take over, and they get the 74-28 win. And they're going to be a team that we're definitely going to keep an eye on this year. And then, Kramer, you had the luxury of being in Rockport on Friday night as Rockport picked up the 40-14 victory over DeKalb. Just kind of what were your takeaways from that game?
From one of my takeaways from that game was DeKalb does not know how to hold onto the ball. There was 4 fumbles throughout the game, and it seemed like every single time the quarterback had the ball, he would either do a run play, and then he would just drop it and muff it, and then the ball was on the ground. But I honestly thought DeKalb was going to make their way comeback because I think it was 28-14 before halftime, and you just thought that, maybe there's a chance that Rockport maybe doesn't score again, but they ended up scoring more in the second half, and then the final score was 40-14. Their actual throwing game, both sides were not good at all.
Yeah, this is a Rockport team that they lost their prolific passer last year in Jace Hughes. They also had a wide receiver by the name of Ryan Dewhurst, who is one of the better wide receivers in the state. He's now a red shirt here at Northwest. We expect him to play tight end in the next couple of years. So they've got some pieces to fill, but Joey Herron had a really good game for them on Friday night, 97 yards and a touchdown for them. And actually, we are going to hear from the head football coach at the Rockport Blue Jays. So here is Ross Hastert, kind enough to join us on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back to This Week in High School Sports. Time now for a Coach's Corner. And in this one, we're going to stay in the 275 conference and go west to Rockport, where we've gone up with the head football coach at Rockport, Ross Hastert. Coach, how's it going today?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Just kind of talk about week one. You guys come out and get a home game against DeKalb, and you get on the board early, and things just kind of clicked for you, it looks like.
Yeah, we got off to a little bit of a slow start in that game, and give DeKalb credit. They were bigger than what we thought maybe and a little more athletic, but we had a lot of question marks going into the game that we needed to get answered, and I thought we did so. We played a lot better in the second half and got things going a little bit to put the game away. But, watching that film, we definitely have a lot to improve on as we keep going down the season, and we'll get those things fixed as we keep going.
What did you see from your team that you really did like, or maybe you guys were a little bit ahead of on Friday night?
I thought our physicality level was okay. Our tackling wasn't awesome, but I thought our physicality was where it needed to be. Our offensive and defensive lines did a nice job. Of course, there's obviously footwork and fundamental things we need to get improved on, but from the physicality coming out week one, I think it's okay. We'll continue to try to get better at it, but that was one thing that stuck out for sure. We had some young players that played well, which is always nice to see as well.
Yeah, you mentioned those young players. Last year, this team that was led by Jace Hughes, Ryan Dewhurst, both those guys now gone. Who are some of the guys that we can kind of expect to be filling those voids this year?
Yeah, Alex Burke is going to start at quarterback for us. Alex is a junior. Alex is, I would call him a sponge. He's a super intelligent guy. Anything I throw at him, he soaks up. And understands it, and sometimes he'll come over to me with some ideas, so that's always nice to have. Gavin Abbott's back as a senior. Brock Martin's back as a senior. Those guys are tailbacks. They're going to get a lot of carries. We've got Zach Clausen on the offensive line, Taylor Leahy on the offensive line, and then our 2 defensive ends, which I'm really excited about, Brett Gaylor and Dalton Stevens. Both those guys got hurt last year, and their seasons were cut short, but they're back with us, and they're having great seasons so far. I'm excited to see what they can do staying healthy for a full season. So we got the pieces of the puzzle. We just need to make sure we put them together and do the best we can.
Last year, you guys win 9-0. You win the 275 conference title. What is that kind of the same expectation this year, or what's the expectation with the new faces?
I think that's the expectation every year. We want to finish on top of the 275 and making sure we're playing very well week in and week out. But with this year's team, we're a little bit younger. Not quite as experienced as we have been in the past, so we're going to make sure we're ready each week and do the best we can and try to go 1-0 each week. So,
just kind of looking at the conference in the 275. A lot of people think you guys, Mound City, East Atchison, will probably be the favorites going in, but also you throw in a team like a Southwest Livingston and a South Holt Nottoway Holt that have had some success in years past. So, just kind of what's your outlook on this conference when we get things rolling here?
I think this will be the toughest conference year that has been since we've probably changed conferences. I think top to bottom, there's a lot of quality teams in this conference this year. And, a lot of times, last year, a lot of those teams were maybe a year away, and now it's this year. So, I wouldn't be surprised if our conference champion, whoever it may be, has one or two losses in the conference. I just think it's competitive up and down. And, Southwest Livingston, Maryville, Southhold, Mountain City, EA, all those teams, they're poised to make a run, and I think we could be thrown in that category as well. So it's going to be fun, and the atmosphere Friday night, 275, ought to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead to this week, you guys will take on Platte Valley. You traveled down there. Have you got a chance to watch any film on them? And what are you anticipating on Friday night?
Yeah, we have. We've tried to get our kids ready, and one thing that sticks out on film is Dalton Luke, number 7 for them. He's a good player. He's a junior. He's a good linebacker. He's a tough running back. And the quarterback is a junior as well. He can throw the ball a little bit. Maybe something that pops out is they're a little bit undersized. And after those two juniors, they may not have a whole lot of experience. But, Butter's a tough place to play. We had a hard time down there 2 years ago, taking care of business. So it's going to be important for us to be ready when we go there. And it's a little bit of a road trip, but not too bad. And they're a good team, and we got to make sure we're correcting our mistakes from week 1 and get better.
Is this going to be another game where the physicality level really has to be there like it was last week for your team?
Oh, absolutely. That's something I take a lot of pride in trying to get physicality out of our players. I think it really benefits us, and if we're playing fast and we're hitting a little bit, that's a good thing for us. So, we always preach physicality, but with that, we got to be fundamentally sound. We're not big enough and strong enough just to go shoulder tackle somebody. We got to make sure we're wrapping up and doing those things correctly. But yeah, physicality on the line of scrimmage is very important for our team.
Well, when you were a player back in your day, you had the luck of playing for two legendary head coaches with Coach Kurt Blatt at Harlan and then Mel Churchman at Northwest Missouri State. Have you tried to kind of instill some of the lessons and things that you learned from those guys into your teams in years past?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. Those two guys, Coach Kurt Blatt and Coach Churchman, they're really kind of two different people, both excellent coaches, obviously. But if I tried to emulate what Coach Blatt said to me or did to me maybe in high school, I might not have a job too long down here. So, but yeah, as far as him caring for the players and things like that, yeah, absolutely. Coach Churchman is obviously a legend in Northwest Missouri, and he was a great coach. He just knew he loved you, and he wanted you to do well, both on and off the football field. And so, yeah, we try to make sure we preach that. Most of our kids, if not all of our kids, aren't going to be playing past the high school level. We want to make sure we're instilling good values in them, and when they leave our program, they can be good students, good husbands, good fathers someday, and doing the right thing off the field. So absolutely a combination of those two guys. I was very fortunate, like you said, Trevor, to play for two really, really good coaches, and I'm very thankful for that.
Talking to Rockport head football coach Ron Fastard on This Week in High School Sports. Coach, thank you for your time. Best of luck to you on Friday night and going forward. We'll talk to you down the road.
All right, sounds good, Trevor. Thank you.
All right, that is Ross Fastard, head football coach in Rockport. We're going to take a real quick break. You're listening to This Week in High School Sports on X106.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports. Trevor Mader and Kramer Sansone here with you on the show, bringing you everything you need to know about area high school sports. Last segment, we recapped what went on in the 275 conference on Friday night. You also heard from Rockport head coach Ross Hastert as they're 1-0 on the season now with the win over DeKalb. Now we will shift our focus to the Grand River Conference and the scores from Friday night there. As I mentioned, Worth County defeated Nottoway Holt 74-28 in that one after South Holt and Nottoway Holt jumped out to an early lead. Caleb Parman had 3 touchdowns for Worth County, also had over 170 yards on the ground. Other scores, Stanberry, who many think could be the team to beat in 8-man this year, they went out and took care of business, defeating Bramer 48-2. King City, North Andrew, these are two teams that everyone thought's in the top 5 in 8-man this year, and King City took it to North Andrew. You don't see that a lot, 40-8. North Andrew's kind of been a powerhouse, and they've been on the other end of a lot of those wins, but just kind of a dominant performance by King City.
See, I remember growing up, North Andrew was a team that's like, yep, they're going to go every single year, win this conference, win everything. And this is actually very shocking that they lost to King City 40-8. That's kind of like, I'm not skeptical about it. Plus, it was also at home for North Andrew.
In North Andrew, from what I've heard from people that are more familiar with the areas, they've graduated a strong senior class, and it could be just a tad bit of a down year, but a down year for North Andrew and a down year for a lot of our teams are still entirely different. I know one person in this area that's really familiar with the 8-man scene in Missouri still thinks that North Andrew's got a legitimate shot of finishing 3rd or 4th in this district. The problem for King City, who could be a dark horse this year in the GRC, is, they got North Andrew, they got Stanberry, they got Worth County, all 3 on the road. I mean, they went out and beat North Andrew on the road this week, but it's going to be tough to do it at Stanberry and at Worth County as well.
If King City can win out those games, watch out.
Yeah.
Seriously, watch out. They could be the most underrated team that's performing the best on this conference.
In the last 7 years, the state champion has either been Worth County, Stanberry, or North Andrew. So you got to assume that one of those 3 could walk out the state champion. But as we mentioned, Worth County, they lost a lot. North Andrew, maybe a little bit of a rebuild year for them. And then Stanberry, they took care of business. And this is a team that, like I said, I've heard a lot of people say they're probably the favorite this year, and I have to agree with Cole Durbin and Trey Schieber in the backfield. They returned some guys on the offensive line as well. They're a well-coached team, and they looked really good on Friday nights. Also, Pattonsburg took down St. Joe Christian 68-12, and then Albany defeated Veritas Christian of Kansas by a score of 64-6. So Worth County, Stanberry, King City, Pattonsburg, and Albany all picked up wins in the Grand River Conference. And as I mentioned, Worth County last year, defending state champion. I've seen a lot of high school football in my time, most of it being in Iowa, but that Worth County team last year I saw was one of the most dominant teams I've ever seen. They were that good. So they did lose some key pieces, though, with Tevin Cameron and Ryan McClellan in the backfield. They also got Devin Jackson on the offensive line, who graduated. So they've got some pieces to fill, but they looked pretty darn good on Friday night. And we were able to catch up with their head coach, Chris Healy, this week. So now we're going to play that interview with Worth County head coach Chris Healy on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports. Now time for another Coach's Corner. And for today's Coach's Corner, we go to Grant City, where the defending 8-man state football champion Worth County Tigers picked up a win in week number 1 over South Holt and Ottaway Holt. They're looking to repeat this year, and we're joined by their coach, head coach Chris Healy. Coach, how's it going today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being on. Just kind of talk about last week's win over South Holt and Ottaway Holt. There were maybe some questions about this team this year with the pieces you guys lost, but you went out and you guys put up a lot of points. I believe 74 on Friday night.
Yeah, we lost a lot of key players from last year. I think 5 or 6 guys on both sides of the ball. So we had a lot of spots that we needed to fill, and we saw some good things Friday. I think South Holt and Ottaway Holt came out quick and scored early, and then we scored a couple of times, and they matched our scores. So they were matching scores with us, those first two touchdowns, and then we had to regroup a little bit and had success from there. But we saw a lot of good things from the young guys that we didn't know how they would respond on Friday nights, and saw a lot of good things from them.
Talk about trailing early in that game, like you said. South Holt and Ottaway Holt answered you guys a couple times early on. I know last year, I don't know that you guys really ever got yourself in a situation where you trailed, and with maybe a little bit younger team or more inexperienced team, was it maybe kind of a good test?
Yeah, I mean, you never know how they're going to respond when South Holt and Ottaway Holt came out and scored on their first drive to go up 6-0. So you never know how our guys are going to respond, and so it was good. We can take that as a positive, that they're not going to hang their heads, and they're going to make the adjustments that are necessary to continue our success. And so you can take that as a positive. I mean, you never want to give up a touchdown, and you never want to fumble on the first play of the game, but if you can turn that into a positive, it's a good thing.
Is there anything you saw from your team on Friday night that you really, really liked?
I mean, we saw a lot of good things. Just the improvements we made from the Jamboree to week 1 up front. I mean, Austin Welch had a much better game for us up front. Overall, our line played extremely well Friday night with Colton Loomis, Dakota Offert, Isaac Allerton up there. So I was really pleased with the way we played up front on the offensive side of the ball, and that led to over a couple hundred yards rushing and about 10 yards of carry. So I was pleased with that. Defensively, I was pleased with the way our younger, experienced guys made adjustments. I mean, we gave up a couple touchdowns early off miscommunication or missed assignments, and they were able to adjust and improve in the later part of the game. So I was pleased with a lot of things for Friday night, but I mean, week one, you got a ton you can improve on throughout the year.
Yeah, no doubt. And last year, you guys were kind of led by that two-headed monster of Kevin Cameron and Ryan McClellan in the backfield, and then you had some guys on the offensive line that had some success as well, and you having to fill those voids this year. Who are some of the guys that we can expect to step up and be hearing their name every Friday night?
Friday night and even all the off season, all the fall practices, Caleb Parman's had a great season for us so far. He's really stepped up into the leadership role, and he's going to take a bulk of the carries, similar to what Kevin Cameron did for us last year. Jacob New is going to be our quarterback. He's not going to be quite the same player as Ryan McClellan, but he does some things better, does some things maybe not as well. So it's just a different skill set that we're going to have to adjust a little bit. But he's done a lot of good things in the off season. He's going to be ready to step in and be a leader at quarterback for us. And then we got a lot of other guys that played last year that are going to be able to take bigger roles. I mean, Isaac Alarcon, Bryant McCord, Colton Wilmus are all guys that played for us last year, but they're going to have to step up this year and take that next step.
You guys defending state champions last year and just really kind of a dominant season all around. And this year, is that the expectation, or is there any added pressure this season?
I don't know if there's added pressure. I mean, every year you want to go in with achieving the highest possible thing you can. So, I mean, this year, same as last year, we want to win as many games as we can and improve as much as we can throughout the year. And hopefully that culminates in a state championship. But I mean, you got to go week in, week out, keep improving every week. We did that from the Jamboree to week one, and we have to keep doing that throughout the year. But these seniors kind of saw what the seniors did last year and saw their leadership and how hard they worked and where it led them. So these guys have followed in their footsteps and they've taken all the right steps so far to get that done.
And Coach, I know I don't have to tell you how tough the GRC conference can be with North Andrew and Stanberry, King City Blue with an impressive win this week. How do you see that conference playing out? Surely it's going to be one where you have to buckle up every week and get ready to go.
Yeah, the league's just as tough as ever. I mean, every week you got a team that's well coached, well prepared, and a lot of good athletes. So every week in the GRC you got to come ready to play, or it's going to be a tough night for you. So, I mean, like you said, King City had a big week one win over North Andrew, who's I think still going to be, in the top of the league. They're still pretty talented once they get the ball rolling. And then Stanberry is, one of the best teams in the state as far as that goes. They got a lot of skill guys back. And then, top to bottom, Pattonsburg, much improved team this year, I think. And then a lot of other faces. So every week this league's tough, and you got to be prepared.
Looking ahead to this week for you guys, kind of an interesting matchup. You guys going to go across the state lines into Iowa and take on a Bedford Bulldog team that's coming off of a tough loss last week. Is this the first time you guys have played an Iowa school, or I can't think that far back to Missouri-Iowa matchup?
Yes, this is, as far as I know, this is the first time we faced an Iowa school. Coach Ambrose called me last spring, saying Iowa was opening up the possibility of crossing state lines, and thought this might be a good matchup for our kids, our community. Geographically, we're 35 minutes away, but we've never played each other. So it'll be a fun matchup, and we don't have a lot of film on them. We've seen them one game, and we don't know really anything about them in the past. So it's going to be learning on the fly as far as that goes. But we're excited to go up to Bedford, and hopefully the two communities can come support the game, and hopefully it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it should definitely be a fun one on Friday night as the Worth County Tigers will travel to Bedford to take on the Bulldogs. We're talking with Worth County head coach Chris Healy. Coach, thank you for your time here today, and best of luck to you here Friday night in Bedford and the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that is Chris Healy, head coach of the Worth County Tigers, joining us on This Week in High School Sports. We're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to This Week in High School Sports. I'm Kramer Sansone and joined by the host of this, Trevor Mater, over there. So, yes, taking a look around the MEC action for last Friday night, Blair Oaks defeated Maryville 38-35. Maryville was down at 19-0 at one point, but did rally back to get the score of 21-19, but still ended up losing 38-35. Within the final minutes of the game, they did get to score a touchdown, but on the onside kick, they didn't recover it. So, of course, the clock got ran out. So, tough loss for Maryville. Winnetonka beat Benton 34-20. Putnam County defeated Bishop LeBlanc 26-12. Cameron won for the first time since 2015 as they defeated Kansas City Northeastern 32-22. Marshall defeated Chillicothe 16-0. Lafayette defeated Clinton 48-0, and under the new head coach of Eric McDowell. Grand Valley defeated Savannah 34-6, and Odessa defeated St. Pius 48.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. I just realized I did not have the score. I believe it was 48-8. I believe was the final. But so there's your winners from the Midland Empire Conference on Friday night. And when I look at that, and you look at the Midland Empire Conference teams, the only two teams that picked up wins from that conference on Friday night are Lafayette and Cameron, a team that hadn't won a game since 2015. So good to see for Cameron. They're able to get the win over Kansas City Northeast, and you got to think it gives them some confidence as well. When you go that long without winning a game, a lot of the game is about confidence, and once you get a win, you no longer have to hear about how you haven't won a game in so long. So I think it's a possibility maybe we see them peel off one or two more by the end of the season.
I'm hoping they at least, of course, win one or two more games. So it's the positive step, and to see this program could grow and potentially, honestly, be a powerhouse within a few years, or who knows, 10 years, who knows. It was the first game. Maybe this could be the start of something new as Cameron steps up.
Yeah, and this is a program that they just haven't been able to find that consistency, but they're able to find enough consistency on Friday night, and they'll try to make it two in a row this upcoming Friday. The Blair Oaks Maryville game, that game was played down at William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri. It was a rematch of a state semifinal, although Coach Matt Webb will tell you this wasn't quite the same Blair Oaks team that we saw last year. A lot of different changes from that team, and Maryville came out, and Blair Oaks was just firing on all cylinders right away. Like you said, jumped out to a 19-0 lead. Maryville took the lead on if I remember correctly, it was a strip fumble, recovered and returned for a touchdown. Then they got back down to 10-0 hole, and they had an opportunity late in the game but couldn't capitalize. And this is a Maryville team that they do return some really good pieces with Tyler Houchin and Eli Dowse in the backfield, but you lose your quarterback, Will Walker. His younger brother steps up. He's now the starting quarterback. Also on the defensive side, they did lose Jalen Sundell, who's now playing collegiately in North Dakota State. So some pieces to fill, but just from the way Coach Matt Webb talked, they're confident going forward, and they just try to take it one game at a time. This is a really, really good Blair Oaks team, but the tough thing for them is now they've got a really, really good Harrisonville team, a team that has been a Class 4 powerhouse for many, many years, but they do get them at home, and they've won 52 in a row in the Hound Pound.
See, I've had the privilege to actually coach baseball for Eli and Houchin, so I know their talent from when they were freshmen, so it's actually pretty awesome seeing how they're pretty much the top, I wouldn't say top guys. Of course, everybody on the team's a top guy. To pretty much perform at a high level every single week. But I'm hoping Maryville gets in the win column this coming Friday, but we can see.
Yeah, and they'll begin conference play the week after. But talk about a tough non-conference schedule when you've got Blair Oaks, who you met in the state semifinal last year, and then you've got Harrisonville, who, as Coach Webb said, they've won almost as many championships the last handful of years as Maryville. So, of course, you can hear that game on X106. Ryan Elliott and Jacob Blair will be on the call for the first Spoofhound broadcast that we have had in a handful of years, and I'm sure they are ready to go for that one. And the Hound Pound's always an interesting place. Like I said, 52 wins in a row. You have to go back quite some time to the last time they won there, and you got to think that does maybe give them a little bit of an edge, but this is a really good Harrisonville team.
Yeah, we'll just see what happens on this Friday.
Yeah, that is going to be an exciting one.
Before that break, though, I want to go to Lafayette again, since Lafayette, I'm surprised, scored 48, as Diego Bernard was their quarterback last year, and he is a Bearcat now playing basketball for us. But it's good to see Lafayette win with a new quarterback.
Yeah, and I believe we have a new coach as well down there.
That's true, Eric McDowell, yes.
So some changes in the Midland Empire Conference this season, and that'll be interesting to see how everything plays out there. As I mentioned, we talked to the head coach of the Spoofhound football team, Matt Webb, earlier this week. He was kind enough to join us, and now we are going to play that interview with Maryville head football coach Matt Webb on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports on KZLX 106.7 LP Maryville. Now we're going to go just down the street to Maryville, where we're going to talk to the head football coach of the Maryville Spoofhounds, Matt Webb. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Just talk about last week. You guys go down to Williams School. You take on Blair Oaks, an opponent that you guys were familiar with. And I know it didn't end the way you guys wanted it to, but what positives do you take away from last week's game?
Well, I think you realize that it's week one, and it's one of those things where I know we're familiar with them from playing in the semifinals. However, they have a new coaching staff this season. They changed coaching staffs, and so they're running a few schemes that obviously we had to prepare for because we hadn't seen them. And when that happens early, we have some difficult time. Get the stops early, and you don't want to go down on the team. Quality opponent, 19-0. We didn't execute well early. On both sides of the ball. Fell behind 19-0, and then once we were able to get a score on offense and get the time to kind of get some of those scheme questions answered and fixed defensively, we're able to come back, and I was proud of came back from 19 down, and actually in the third quarter went up 21-19, and some really good things came out of that, and then we just weren't able to sustain it in the third and fourth quarter, and those things that I'm a firm believer in good teams make the most improvement between week one and week two, and because you've got some quality film, you get some good opponents, and you get a lot of things to fix. So there'll be some things to fix this week. Looking forward to our week two at home.
Talk about the transition from week one to week two. I know last year you guys had a loss early on in the season. There were maybe some people that thought this would be a down year, and that you guys answered by winning a state championship. Does the way last year started out maybe make you not fret or panic as much as maybe you might have in years past?
No, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Every year is different. We don't talk about last year's state championship. Yeah, that was great, but that was a different team a long time ago. We've got to fix ourselves this year, and then the way you do that is you focus on the details and you look at what we call, taking care of the process, which means we got to tackle better on defense. We've got to communicate better. We've got to get ourselves in the right spots to get stops defensively, and then get in the right coverages and the right fronts, and different things like that. It's the X's and O's, and it's getting our kids in the right positions to make plays. Last year. At any time you get a loss, that's not what you want. But what happens is, what do you do after that loss? That's what's most important, and that's just like life, anything else. You're going to have setbacks. Well, how do you respond to it? And we'll focus on that this week, but we don't talk about last year's state championship run. That was in the past, and we're on to 2018.
You mentioned a new year and a new team, but a couple of the guys that are back from last year's team, Eli Dallas and Tyler Housen, should we expect the same from them this year that we saw last year?
Yes, those guys are good players. I expect them to, do things just like everybody else on the team.
Some new faces this year as well. Who are going to be some of those guys that we can expect to be hearing their names that maybe we haven't in the years past?
Well, obviously, Will Walker graduated at quarterback last year as a senior. Our starting quarterback right now is Ben Walker. He's a sophomore. That's Will's little brother. Had a lot of first game stuff that, did some things really well. Hit some nice passes and things like that. But there's a lot of improvement that quarterback position needs to make. Obviously, other guys on the line of scrimmage. We graduated 2 seniors in Jalen Sundell and Jacob Search, and then Jackson Sanders. Some of those guys that we really pride ourselves on the line of scrimmage. If you follow Maryville football, you got to know that we're going to run the football, make people defend the line of scrimmage. And so a lot of new names up there with Jeff Stooksbury, Logan Walker's back this year off of injury last year. He's our starting center. In different guys filling roles as they grow up in the program, whether that's Talon Nolan, Jacob Davenport, different things. And on the defensive side, we've got some guys that, again, have gotten older in the program and then playing a lot more. Mark Gustafson, he is just a sophomore, but did a really good job the other night. He'll be getting in, some more meaningful action, I guess, with the varsity, and just different guys across the board when you think about the line of scrimmage.
And you're looking at the Midland Empire Conference this year. I believe there are only 2 teams in that conference that picked up wins on Friday night. What's your outlook on this conference when we begin conference play here soon?
Right now, my outlook is solely based on a very good Harrisonville team. We'll get to the MEC play when we get there, but the early season, I don't really look much into that. I think everybody's going to look much into our loss against the Blair Oaks. we're focusing on ourselves. And, I think the MEC is a great conference. Obviously, we've got some coaching staff turnover. If you follow it and you do your research, you can realize there's new coaches at Lafayette. There's new coaches at Benton. There's different schemes that we'll have to face when we get to them. But, right now we're focused on Harrisonville.
And talk about that matchup with Harrisonville this Friday at home. They're a Class 4 team that's been years past. And are you anticipating it's going to be a tough battle?
Yeah, I anticipate every game is going to be a tough battle. Obviously Harrisonville's a power, a Class 4 powerhouse is what they are. They, if you look at their record since 2012, we've had state championships. They've had state championships. They've faced some very difficult teams in Class 4 in the playoffs in Wedge City that put them out in the quarterfinals. They've got a great tradition. Maryville has never beaten Harrisonville. You look at years past, back in 2004 and things like that, where they were Class 3, we've run up against them, but Maryville's never beaten them. So we've got a tall task. Chris Maxwell does a great job. It's a very good tradition. A Class 4 powerhouse that we're fortunate enough to play at home this year.
You talk about the getting to play at home. It seems like have you guys been able to pinpoint what it is that gives you guys the advantage at home? I mean, it's been a while since you guys have had a loss on your home turf.
Yeah, I think if you look in the books and records and stuff like that, you'll be able to look that we've got a 52-game home win streak, and we're very proud of that. But I think what happens is, there's not any different. We don't do anything different at home except we've got great fans. The kids are very comfortable in that environment, and we typically play very well at home. So there's a lot of factors that go into it before we can talk about it in a simple radio interview. But it's home field advantage. Maryville's a special place where you're talking Northwest Bearcats and you're talking Spoofhound football. Those home fields are something that we've got to protect. So.
Indeed they are, and that is Matt Webb, head football coach of the Maryville Spoofhounds. They'll take on Harrisonville on Friday night. Coach, thank you for your time, and best of luck against Harrisonville on Friday.
Thank you.
Talk to you down the road.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, that is Matt Webb, head coach of Maryville. We'll be right back here on KZLX LPFM Maryville.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports on KZLX FM. You can also listen online at kzlxfm.com. As always, give us a follow on Twitter at x106_sports and follow our high school sports coverage on Twitter at x106highschool1. Trevor Mater, Kramer Sansone here with you today, wrapping things up as we are not far away from the kickoff to Maryville, Harrisonville down at the Hound Pound. Ryan Elliott and Jacob Blair will have the call with you here in just a matter of minutes. You just heard from the head football coach at Maryville, Coach Matt Webb, as they're looking to even their record at 1-1 as they will take on a very tough Harrisonville squad. But now it's time to look ahead to this Friday night. If you're on your way to a game or you're listening online, of course you want to know what's going on in the rest of the football world in Northwest Missouri. So Kramer, what's going on?
So in the 275 conference, the schedule for pretty much this week, Rockport will take on Platte Valley, who Rockport is 1-0 and Platte Valley is 0-1. So let's see if Platte Valley can get their first win. Stewartsville's taking on Mound City, as they both are 1-0. So let's see who can win that. I'll actually be covering the East Atchison and Northwest Nottoway, as they both are winless on the season. South Holt Nottoway, Holt is 0-1, and they're taking on Southwest Livingston, who's 1-0. See if South Holt Nottoway Holt can get the first win of the season. And Chilhowie versus DeKalb, who are both 0-1 on the season. See who can get their first win of the season as well later on tonight. See who finds out.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. A handful of teams in the 275 conference. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them looking for their first win, as well as Chilhowie. Moving on to the Grand River Conference. Stanberry and Albany, they will battle tonight in Albany. Both teams 1-0, looking to improve to 2-0 on the season. King City picked up the impressive win last week over North Andrew. They will host Northwest Hughesville tonight. Worth County will travel just across the state lines into the good old town of Bedford as they will take on the Bulldogs. Worth County 1-0 on the season after the win over South Holt, Nottoway Holt last week. Bedford dropped a 50-7 decision to a really good Cumberland Anita Messina team. North Andrew, they're 0-1 on the season. You don't get to say that very often. They will travel to St. Joe Christian as they take on St. Joe Christian. They're looking to get their first win of the season as well. And Pattonsburg will travel to Bramer. Pattonsburg 1-0 in the season. Bramer 0-1. One score we did forget to mention from last week, up across the state lines in Iowa, Clarinda picked up the win in the Page County Super Bowl over Shenandoah by a score of 37-19. The Cardinals are 1-0 on the season. They will host the Red Oak Tigers, who are 0-1 on the season. And going back across to the Show Me State, to the Midland Empire Conference this week, Savannah, they're 0-1. They will travel to Pleasant Hill, who's 1-0. 0-1, St. Pius X will take on St. Michael the Archangel, who's also 0-1. Center will take on Lafayette. Lafayette, one of the only two MEC teams to pick up a win last week. They're going to try to make it 2-0. 0-1, Benton will travel to 1-0 Excelsior Springs. 0-1, Chillicothe will travel to 0-1 Kirksville. And in a game you can hear momentarily on X106, 0-1 Harrisonville will take on the also 0-1 Maryville Spoofhounds from the Hound Pound. Ryan Elliott and Jacob Blair are there and ready to go. Cameron, 1-0 for the first time since at least 2015. They will take on an 0-1 Kansas City East team, so a possibility for Cameron to start off the season 2-0. East Buchanan is 1-0. They will travel to 0-1 Bishop LeBlanc. So there you go. By my count, 8 games on the schedule in the Midland Empire Conference. And also you've got 5 in the GRC and 5 in the 275. So we will be busy keeping up with everything going on in those respective conferences. And when we look at the schedule, Kramer, a lot of games kind of early, so it's tough to get a great read of teams other than obviously, Maryville's going to get their problems fixed. Worth County is going to be really good. Stanbury is going to be really good. North Andrew will get their problems fixed, but it's still a lot of questions. What game are you the most excited for this week?
I'm ready for I'm most excited for the game that's coming up later on here on X106. Maryville versus Harrisonville. Maryville, they have a lot to prove. I mean, they lost the game last week, so they're hungry, and they're at home, so they're going to put on a performance tonight for the fans and for the community in Maryville. So, Spoofhounds, let's see if they can win tonight against Harrisonville.
Yeah, I know Coach Matt Webb expects them to be really physical tonight, and he expects it to be a battle, and I don't blame him. It should be a really, really good game, and definitely one you will want to tune into, as that'll be going on here in a little bit. For me, I'm going to go to the 8-man game, and just across the state lines to the wonderful town of Bedford, Iowa. Worth County traveling to Bedford tonight. Like I said earlier, this is a Worth County team that they've kind of got a little bit of a tradition there. They're not quite on the same level, I think, with tradition as a North Andrew or a Stanbury, but they've had some really good teams in the years past. Last year's team was incredibly good. They lost a lot of pieces, but they came out. They put up a lot of points last week. They showed a lot of good things. They've showed a lot of good things all offseason, according to their coach, Chris Healy. And they get a Bedford team who has some offensive weapons that are really fun to watch, with Cooper Nally at quarterback, Brennan Seifert at wide receiver. It didn't pan out last week against a really good Cumberland Anita Messina team. They lost 50-7. But I've never seen an Iowa against Missouri matchup. This is the first time in a long time that the Iowa High School Athletic Association has allowed for schools to play other schools from out of state. And talking with Coach Healy, who's also the athletic director there, he said it was kind of a no-brainer for them. They're only 30 miles away from Bedford. It was a chance to see a different team. It wasn't a far drive. And they're a team that he feels probably isn't too far off from their level, or maybe even at their level. So that is going to be an interesting one. I think there could be a ton of points in that one.
That'd be awesome if there's a ton of points. I do like the fact that it's going to be a Missouri team taking on an Iowa team to see which side's better. I like that. So
yeah,
I'm a Missouri native,
and I'm an Iowa native. So
let's go Missouri.
Yeah, I won't say anything. I don't want to step on any toes or anything. I know you're going to be in Burlington Junction tonight. This show is pre-recorded, so Kramer doesn't have the speed or anything. East Atchison at Northwest Nottoway. That one is going to be an interesting one to me because Northwest Nottoway, a team that kind of struggled to getting the offense going last week. East Atchison, they had no trouble getting the offense going. Unfortunately, the defense couldn't come up with the stop. So, what are you anticipating tonight?
I'm anticipating East Atchison to probably take the win over Northwest Nottoway. I know East Atchison is not a bad team per se.
Yeah, well, this is an East Atchison team that a lot of people think has an outside shot of winning the 275. The common consensus is that Mountain City's the favorite, and then it's kind of, Rockport and East Atchison are right there, but they definitely kind of got off to a sluggish start last week.
See, I'm learning more of the 8-man games, so it's going to be very interesting for me to understand what's going on throughout the conference. And if East Atchison wins this and Northwest Nottoway doesn't, I'll figure out who's going to be the better team when I get there.
There you go. I like the expertise right there. So when you look at that, like I said, Mound City, based on the people I've talked to that are, I don't know that I want to call them an expert, but that really, really know Missouri 8-man football and have covered the sport for a long time. Mound City's the favorite. They returned Dylan Mars at quarterback, also some key pieces on their offense as well, returning Rockport. They had a lot to fill, but they went out and they played pretty solid against DeKalb. East Atchison, they returned their leading rusher in Bryson Bywater. They also returned a couple of other key offensive players, so they got behind the 8 ball early on, but they're able to pick up. Maybe they can pick up the win on Friday night and even it up and see what they can do down the road. In the GRC, Stanberry, Worth County, King City, I'm really interested what they can do as they got Northwest Hughesville. Maybe they can go to 2-0, but we're going to be keeping an eye on all of this season each and every week. But just real quick, I wanted to run through the fine folks at Straight Up Sports, also known as former X106 sports director Devin Albertson. Devin is, I don't know, like I said, I don't know that he's an expert when it comes to Missouri 8-man football, but he definitely knows his stuff. And he has compiled a ranking, so to speak, of them. And we'll just run through these real quick. He's got Stanberry 1, Worth County 2, King City 3, Mountain City 4, Pattonsburg 5, Southwest Livingston 6, Rockport 7, North Andrew 8, East Atchison 9, South Holt, Nottoway Holt 10. The only surprise I saw was Rockport moved down 1 after a win. Also, Southwest Livingston had a really good win over East Atchison, so that could have been kind of the flip-flop there. I know, like you said, you're still kind of learning this, but when you look at these rankings, what do you think?
I from watching Rockport play, if they keep playing like well and but they score more points, I could see them not as a 7, possibly a 3-4. So apparently Mount City is supposed to be the best in this conference, but since Stanberry won last week, I don't know. I'm still learning. I'll have more next week and understand a little bit better.
I think the top 3 is probably Stanberry, Worth County, Mountain City, or King City. It just depends how you flip them, how the season pans out. And then Mountain City is on the outside looking in. I think the 275 just hasn't had the success in years past against the GRC. But I just found it was really interesting that Devin was able to compile those rankings. And
it's just odd to see North Andrew at 8.
It is, and it's odd to say they're going to have a down year. When a down year for them could be 7-3 and finishing 3rd in the district and making a state semifinal. I mean, it's really not that far-fetched. But I think that's pretty much all we got for this week. Is we're going to wrap things up. We're going to throw you down to the Hound Pound here tonight, as you can listen to that. Harrisonville, a Class 4 power, is in town to take on the defending Class 3 state champion Maryville Spoofhounds. Both teams eyeing their first win of the season. You can hear that game on X106 with Ryan Elliott and Jacob Blair, as we'll throw it to them. Until then, for This Week in High School Sports, for Kramer Sansone, I'm Trevor Mater on X106.